Hello students, this is part 4 of chapter 4. Children, now the coming segment of this chapter is that part in which you have to become more attentive as these coming topics may be new concept for you to understand. Though in first video of this chapter you have studied the glimpse of Sachi, here the following topics are ready to take you in the depth of the stupas. So these are stupas, why and how stupas built, the structure of stupa, discoveries of stupas, the fate of Amravati and Sachi, and the sculpture. What is a chapter? Thinkers, belief, and buildings. Okay, we start here with stupas. Firstly, we'll try to understand why and how stupas built. And I given you this map also. We will use it for understanding. So, first of all, we are trying to understand the Chaityas. Chaityas basically stupas. Smaller stupas are known as the Chaityas. When they become bigger in size, they called stupas. But it is not enough. We have to know more about the stupas. In Buddhist ideas and practices, people tended to regard certain places as sacred. These included sites with small shrines attached to them. They were sometimes described as chaityas. Buddhist literature mentions several chaityas where Lumbini, see in the map, Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, Kushinagar. Are you finding these all in the map? Of these places came to be regarded as sacred. About 200 years after the time of Buddha, Ashoka, the great ruler, okay, Ashoka erected a pillar at Lumbini to mark that he had visited that place. Besides, there were some relics of the Buddha. Relics means belongings or you can say remains of Buddha, such as his body remains or objects used by him were buried there. These mounds known as stupas. Now you have understood a better meaning of stupas. So we go for the structure of stupas. See the structure of a stupa. This is a building of stupa, and you see a round figure in between. It is under and a railing around it, which is separating it from the earth. And the above part is Harmika, and there is a pillar kind of road. It's known as Yasti, and above that is Chhatri. And Chhatri may be a multi-story, but here we find only one Chhatri in this pic. So we'll start. The super meaning of the super is a Sanskrit word. Its meaning heap. Originated as simple semicircular mound of earth, later called under. Gradually, it evolved into more complex structure, balancing round and square shape. Above the under was the Hermika. See in the pic, a balcony-like structure that represented the above the abode of the gods. Abode means house, house of the gods. Arising from the Hermika was a mast called the Yasti, often surmounted by a chhatri or umbrella. Around the mound was a railing separating the sacred uh, space from the secular world. Each stupa has a history of its own. The sculptures of the stupas were removed from the stupas and transported all the way to Europe. Isn't it a bad news for us that our remainings, our heritage has gone to the European countries? Discovering stupas. See first this pic, how wonderfully carved, carving on this stone and telling some stories. Here you can see the rolling, unrolling in a round circle way. It's a way of telling the stories, and it is symbolizing that the page is getting open and the stories are here in front of you to visualize. So we'll start discovering of the stupas. In 1796, a local Raja who wanted to build a temple stumbled on the ruins of the stupa at Amravati. So he decided to use the some stone and thought that might be some treasure buried in the what seemed to be a hill. Some year after, a British official named Colin Mackenzie visited this site. In 1854, Walter Elliot, the commissioner of Guntur, visited Amravati and collected several sculpture panels and took them away to Madras. He also discovered the remains of the Western Gateway and came to the conclusion that the structure at Amravati was one of the largest and most magnificent Buddhist stupas ever built. Here we will see the next topic, that is the fate Amravati and Sachi. Why this topic is given here in this way? Because the question always arises: why did Sachi survive while Amravati did not? Basically, in Amravati uh, there was also a mound of of stupa, but it is not in good condition. So we are going to try answer it through this table, and you can have this answer, but normally I'm going to tell you about this in my words, that perhaps Amravati was discovered before these scholars understood the value of the finds and realized how critical it was to preserve things where they had been found instead of removing them from the site. When Sachi discovered three of its four gateways were still standing. The fourth was lying on the spot where it had fallen, and the mound was in good condition. Even so, it was suggested that the gateway be taken to either Paris to London. Finally, a number of factors had to keep Sachi as it was, and so it stands. While Amravati is now in just insignificant little mound and totally denuded of its former glory. Here we come to the sculpture. As we knew that the sculptures were removed from the stupas and transported all the way to Europe. This happened partly because those who saw them considered them to be beautiful and valuable and wanted to keep them for themselves. So, at the first sight, the sculpture seems to depict a ruler scene of hearts and trees. However, art historians who have carefully studied the sculpture at Sachi identify it as a scene from Vesantara Jataka. Many early sculptures did not show the Buddha in human form. Instead, they showed his presence through symbols. The empty seat was meant to indicate the meditation of the Buddha, and the stupa was meant to represent the Mahaparinirvana. Another frequently used symbol was the wheel. This stood for the first sermon of Buddha delivered at Sarnath. As it is obvious that the sculpture cannot be understood literally. For instance, the tree does not stand for the simply meaning of tree, but symbolizes an event in the life of the Buddha. In order to understand such symbols, historians have to familiarize themselves with the tradition of those who produce these work of art. Children, we will finish our topics here, and remaining part of this chapter we will cover in next video. Till then, take care.